Knon 89.3 FM in Dallas and Fort Worth, the voice of the people.
Business owners, tell KNON's listeners about your business. You can put your business or event on KNON. KNON currently has space available to run announcements for you. Tell KNON's listeners about your goods, services, nightclub, concert, or event. Help keep the voice of the people on the air while putting your information on the air. KNON's been named the #1 radio station in Dallas by both the Dallas Observer and D Magazine. Put your business with Dallas's #1 station. Call now for more information at 214-828-9500, extension 227, or extension 233. For more information, go to KNON.org and click on the Run Spots on KNON page. It's a great way for your business to support community radio while letting more people know about you.
Get off my lawn.
Watergate! Watergate!
Jim Schutze and Eric Celeste are back with Get Off My Lawn, the show where we tell you everything about everything, and it's fascinating, and great to be back. I have to open with a personal note, and then we'll get down to business. This is for Ed, Tom, and Steve. You will note that I'm very snappily dressed today. Because this thing is a video, and Eric's been putting it up on the D blog and so on, people are looking at us, and I have been criticized for my appearance.
It's all my fault.
That's right. And so...
Yeah, and I keep saying, I do what I do, which is turn it on and then don't look at it and just listen to it.
But, I mean, pretty nice, wouldn't you say?
You look great.
Thanks very much. It's a fishing shirt. So it's kind of an outdoor look.
Very river runs through it.
Yeah, thanks. Let's get down to business. It's so funny. I'm a columnist for the Dallas Observer. Eric is a columnist for D Magazine, and we compete, but we cross paths in odd ways during the week. This week I got a text on my phone that started out Eric, and I thought,
it wasn't at about 2 a.m., was it?
It may have been.
Oh, okay.
No, it was not
good.
one of those.
Oh, good.
No, it didn't say, where are you? No, it had some information about DISD in it, which leads me to believe, Eric, that you and I have been working the same vein this week, which probably has to do with, and you've written about it, with Rebecca Rodriguez and the whole flap over DISD Superintendent Mike Miles, and is he in the mafia or what?
Right.
Does he deserve a trial, or should we just string him up? Or anyway, you've written about this. Could you catch us up on what you had to say this week about the Mike Miles business? This is a matter that's been turned over to an independent investigator, and the accusation is that Miles interfered in a contracting process in a corrupt way.
Right, and correct me where I'm wrong here, Jim, because you've written about this also. So about 4 months ago, DISD hired a new communications chief. Right. Not necessarily the person you see on the news talking as a spokesperson, but somebody who is on the cabinet and runs all communication aspects for the district. Rebecca Rodriguez, who is a longtime Dallas media person, worked at I think at 3 TV stations: Channel 8, the CBS station, and the Fox station. And for the past few years had been running her own, well, just before that had been working in a similar capacity in Arlington, and had also been done some of the stuff that I had done, which was have your own consultancy and go do media, try to get money out of folks to tell them to smile on camera.
Right.
So she took that position, and there was apparently, all of a sudden there were reports she was leaving. And this was just 3 months in, and that was very strange. So she does leave. There's really no public explanation as to why. And then this starts to come out, that because she had asked for an investigation into what she thought was improper actions by Chief Mike Miles. And what she said happened, according to this report now that was leaked by Carla Ranger on her blog, right? A 41-page, single-space typed, very long to read report.
With big, huge red type saying, highly confidential.
Right. It said it was a fine, and there was arguments about this, whether this should have been leaked or not, whether it was final draft or confidential. But anyway, so she takes care of all that and just puts it on her blog. So according to this investigation that was contained therein, Rodriguez said that Miles had acted improperly by pulling at the last moment an item from the board's agenda where they were going to that announced a winner for a bid for the district to do, and I think, and this is where I'm confused a little bit, was it parental
engagement?
Okay.
Which is a little fuzzy.
Right.
But anyway, parental engagement
these organizations had said, we can do this, we'll charge you X amount of money to do this, and we'll get parents engaged at schools. And the district was going to pick one of those organizations. So a committee had recommended one. What Miles said was, when he found that out, and when others alerted him to that, no, we should pick 3 from this subcommittee, and the other committee, the final committee that makes this decision, will pick one of those 3, and then to recommend that to the board.
And let me inject one little thing, which you may be also, it's just something I came across, that there's a feeling that there may have been things wrong. I mean, it's Rodriguez who set up the committee, and
Right.
and some people think the committee wasn't copacetic. There were things wrong, that it was. There's unease about the committee process. So anyway, go ahead.
And there's disagreement about what is standard practice and what isn't.
Yeah.
Right. So, but this is what happened in this case. And so Miles is made aware that one winner is about to be told to the board, this is who we recommend.
Right.
So that he, at the last minute, he goes to one of the people in the building who he deals with for these sort of agendas, and looking over these agendas, and says, pull this from the agenda.
Right.
Does not tell Rodriguez. That person does not tell Rodriguez.
Right.
Rodriguez finds out about it an hour before the board meeting.
Right.
And during that board meeting, which is online and you can look at, acts, how would you characterize? Confused, says she's unsure why it was pulled.
Signaling to the board, there's something wrong here.
Something's
every way
weird.
she can.
Right. Without winking,
Yeah,
she's
right.
winking.
But the board members do wink. Ranger and Carla, or what's her name, Jones, Elizabeth Jones, are sort of giving her the, hey, where to go, you know.
Right. Wait. Hey, there's a problem here. Why is this pulled at the last minute?
Right.
What? This is odd. So after that, there is, according to this report, lots of consternation.
Right.
Miles says there's, you don't have my back. You hung me out to dry on this.
Right.
Rodriguez says you were doing something that is unethical, and that impugns my integrity, and my name is associated with this, and my children are associated with my name, and I could go on and on about how she's
They will have children.
right on down the line,
Yeah.
besmirching. So that leads to a few days later, she resigns. She has a chance to, as part of her deal, my understanding is she can't talk bad about the district, but she did not take the chance to rescind her request for this investigation.
Right.
So this investigation goes on. It's now leaked. The morning news weighs in and says this is the final straw. This is bad.
Yeah.
Everybody characterizes this report as very, very shady on Miles' part.
Right.
And so that brings us to here.
Yeah, and I think that you and I probably went at this with this similar mindset. I know I was thinking, wow, this sounds bad, and if Miles has stepped in it, it's surprising because it doesn't seem like the guy, but you never know.
Right.
If he's in there corruptly trying to steer contracts to his buddies, then the hell with him.
Right.
You know,
at that
what I
point,
figured.
you've screwed up too much. Everyone knows you can't do that in public office, and you got too cocky, and that attribute that we thought you had suppressed a little bit and you'd figured it out, you didn't. So goodbye. And then I read the report.
We both read the report, and I happened to be reading this really great Irish crime novel called The Rage. And the night before I read the report, the author was talking about how detectives, and we could say the same for reporters and editors, get these files from crazy people.
Right.
And you can tell when you look at them on the page, because they have all this crazy typeface and different colored letters and random underlining.
Right.
And I looked at
highlights everywhere and notes on the marginalia.
I looked at the report and I thought, okay, first of all, this looks like a file from a crazy person.
Right.
But anyway, what did you find when you...
So I read it, and I came away with this feeling that that report was not reflected in any of the summaries of it I had read.
Right, that's fair, sure.
That this looked like to me, and granted, maybe I'm going in trying to with a contrarian view and whatever, but still, when I was done, I said this looked like Miles was already not trusting Rebecca Rodriguez,
Afraid to meet alone with her.
Had said he was at that point, and for the weeks prior, making sure that another person was always in the room with him when he had conversations with her because he didn't trust her.
Right.
Whether that's valid or not, it was happening.
Yeah.
And so he pulled this off the agenda when he found out one contractor was being recommended. He was saying, and others have, there's a disagreement about this, but that there should have been 3 recommended to the next committee level.
Yeah.
And which was within his right to do so.
And let me interject. I think I learned from a person who you may have also been receiving phone texts from that there were all kinds of problems with the way the contracting stuff went. That the company that was selected to get the contract didn't do the job that they were trying to get done. That there's this other outfit called the Concilio, and they're what's called turnkey. You hire them, and they go in and they put on this deal to get the parents engaged.
Meaning they take care of everything, soup to nuts.
Yeah, and the one they were given the contract to doesn't do any of that. It's just a curriculum, and so the school principal's got to find her staff members to carry it out. And the school principals are saying, don't give me anything like that. I don't have the staff for it. Just give me something that I don't have to take people away from teaching to do. So there were issues with the contract.
And the grades, the committee's grading of each company bidding was in there. And they were number 2, this other group, and they were very close. And number 3 was fairly close, and everybody else was far away. So it wasn't ridiculous.
Right.
And I've been a part of, and I've written RFPs for companies. And that sort of thing goes on all the time. The rules change within the process a little bit, depending on, one company does everything, one does a little bit of it.
Yeah.
So let's get it as close as we can and figure out what we like and what we don't. So none of that was surprising to me. And what was surprising to me was somebody coming in and grandstanding like I felt like Rodriguez was doing over and over and over again, saying, I won't do this and you're putting my integrity on the line. Well, sure, don't break the law on behalf of anybody.
No.
And don't do anything highly unethical. I see zero proof other than some people in the witch's den of DISD, some people saying looks like this is favoritism, some saying no, it's not. Well, your job in that role, Miles is right. Your job is ultimately to have his back. That doesn't mean you can't go into his office when that door is closed, close that door, and yell at him and say you are doing things that have the appearance of impropriety. You have stepped in it too many times. My job is to keep you out of this, and you need to start listening to me.
Now,
there's nothing wrong with that.
Do you know Rodriguez at all?
No.
I don't either. This may be very unfair, but when I read the deal, when she goes on and on, she's quoted as saying that it's my integrity that's on the line when I'm in that meeting, and I'm the one my signature was on that document, which apparently it wasn't. But anyway, she's talking about her role, and I'm reading it thinking, lady, that's when you were on TV.
Right.
You're not on TV now. You're working for this guy.
I talked to someone who worked with her for 6 or 8 years, a former boss, and I said, before he had read the report, and I said, tell me this and this and this. And he said, they're two strong personalities. The way a newsroom works is you've got these people who go in and butt heads with their bosses and throw tantrums like that, and because they're the talent. And in that world, the talent wins.
Because the talent can go in front of the camera, and that makes the audience ping, ping, ping.
Yes.
There's somebody, and so they have that power.
Right. And he said, she's a great person, she's great to work with, etc. Then I got a message after he read the report, and he said, I can believe everything that's in there. I can totally see those two personalities clashing like that, and I have no doubt that she said everything that was attributed to her.
Yeah. Including that she deliberately, she didn't say this. Two
people
who were on her side, kind of.
Yeah.
Reluctant witnesses said
that she said, I'm going to teach him a lesson.
In the meeting, in front of the cameras, I'm going to teach him a lesson.
I'm going to teach him a lesson, meaning I'm going to get Miles back for what I perceive he's doing to me. That's a problem. And by the way, that's valuable information if you're the newspaper and you tell me nothing else about that report. If you want to characterize it as Mike Miles is stepping in it again and doing unethical things and he's going to get run out of town on a rail, fine. But what you have to tell me out of those 41 pages, the one other thing you have to tell me is that two people say that the person who brings these charges and makes these allegations said beforehand she was going to teach him a lesson.
Yeah, and the thing you wrote, I thought it was very funny. You were saying, why don't you come into the hierarchy where I work?
Right.
Try that.
And I'm not there full time anymore. I'm freelancer, but I used to be, and several places. But if Wick Allison runs D Magazine, and a lot of people around town have known him for a long time. Yeah. Wick's a very smart guy, but you want to complain about getting dressed down in front of people. I remember putting stuff up on the blog and hearing him screaming from the other end of the hall my name, cursing and coming, getting louder as it came down the hall, and everybody in all the cubes just sinking down. And there we were having our yelling match in front of everybody, and that's part of the deal. I mean, you can't take that kind of stuff personally, and that's the reason that's relevant. I don't think we've made it clear is she accuses him of bullying her.
Yes,
and that's a very loaded term, and that's something that a lot of that again, when I read, I saw someone who was frustrated and angry, and by the way, apologized several times and for yelling. I'd never seen that in my bosses. They say you can take it or leave it. But that's the other allegation that's in there that I just didn't see.
Okay, well, we'll be back in a minute. Jim Schutze and Eric Celeste, just get off my lawn.
Business owners, tell KNON's listeners about your business. You can put your business or event on KNON. KNON currently has space available to run announcements for you. Tell KNON's listeners about your goods, services, nightclub, concert, or event. Help keep the voice of the people on the air while putting your information on the air. Put your business with Dallas's #1 station. Call now for more information at 214-828-9500, extension 227, or extension 233. For more information, go to KNON.org and click on the Run Spots on KNON page. It's a great way for your business to support community radio while letting more people know about you.
When they're gone for good. This is Scott from KNON's Texas Blues Radio telling you don't miss out on some great blues. KNON's Texas Blues Radio Volume 5 Blues CD. It's a CD put together by real blues fans for real blues fans like you. Texas Blues Radio Volume 5 features great local blues from Michael J. and the Paul Bird Band, J.J. and the Detonators, the Chris Watson Band, the Two Tones, Rough Cut Blues Band, Jeff Stone with Charlie Love, Dave Millsap, Sirloin and the Ass-Kicking Machine, Tutu Jones, Blues Boy Bo, Buddy Whittington, Andrea Dawson, Kirkland James, Sonny Colley, and Johnny Red and the Roosters. Get a copy now at Forever Young Records in Grand Prairie, Recordtown in Fort Worth, and in Dallas at Bill's Records. This is a Dallas Blues collector's item. A very limited amount of vinyl copies can be found at Forever Young Records, the sponsor of this great blues project. CD downloads are available at cdbaby.com. Whether you get it as a download, on vinyl, or on CD, all the proceeds will benefit KNON. For more info on Texas Blues Radio Volume 5, visit knon.org.
Get off my lawn.
Jim Schutze and Eric Celeste with Get Off My Lawn. We've been talking about the Rebecca Rodriguez, Mike Miles dust up at DISD, and this whole matter's been turned over to an outside investigator. We'll see what happens with that. But Eric has been talking about the sort of basic backstory of what the relationship was before all this happened between Rebecca Rodriguez, who was chief of communications, an employee who reported to Miles, and Mike Miles, the Dallas superintendent of schools. We have one thing we haven't thrown in there was that before all this happened, after Rodriguez took her job, she finds out that there's an initiative underway where an outside consultant has been brought in to look at reorganizing her department. And I can imagine that's probably not what you want to find out when you just start a job.
Who is mentioned in the report. It's
right.
Lisa Lemaster.
Right.
And and it suggests that she wasn't happy about it, that she comes in.
Right.
And Miles says, look, we've got this outside consultant who's got some ideas on what we're going to do to restructure our communications system. The one that I used so poorly for the past 2 years.
Yeah.
So, and she said she sort of bristled at that and said, oh, well, many of these ideas I had as well. And he says, well, that's fine. That's great. Yeah. But that there was then some sort of problem, which is interesting because I happen to know that when she was hired, there was a sort of an elite panel of people put together to help Miles do through the interview process for that. Among them, noted PR people in town who could weigh in on whether or not this person could help Miles in this cesspool of media that he has to, politics that he has to deal with. That included Mary Woodleaf at the Allen Group, who runs that, Allen Media, and that included Lisa Lemaster.
Yeah.
So Lisa was one of the people who recommended that Rebecca get hired. It was, she was one of the people on that group who had to say, yeah, thumbs up, she's the one who needs to do this. So it struck me as odd, which is not in the report, but I know that to be true. So it struck me as odd that she comes in and is upset about, or at least taken aback by, the fact that Lemaster was suggesting some reorganization of the structure of the department.
And there's some specifics in the report that I haven't been able to run down. I'm not sure what they mean, but apparently there was some talk of getting rid of some people in the department. And that's neither here, I have no idea whether any of those decisions were right or wrong, but that's tough stuff for anybody.
Sure.
To have to get rid of people, especially if you're not really a lifelong management person.
Right. And if you're coming in, and if you're coming in and you want to, sometimes you go into a situation and you want to bring in some folks who you trust. That's fine, but you should be able to make that evaluation yourself.
Yeah.
Totally get that.
Right.
And I would have not been, by the way, if it was me, I would not have been thrilled
with the deal.
No, I would have said, "Hey, you hired me for a reason.
Yeah.
If I'm going to go down for something, I'm going down with a structure that I build, not one that someone else built." So I didn't have a problem with her having a problem with that.
I did discuss this with a media management person at my own place who made an interesting suggestion. He wasn't talking about Rodriguez personally. He just said, well, when you get to that point where you've got a sort of a media personality type and you got to get rid of them, they often come up with a lot of story about why they're being gotten rid of. Oh, you're just trying to suppress the story that I'm working on.
I'm a truth teller.
Yeah, and you're a bad liar, and so they're gonna improve this scenario somewhat.
Yeah, and I got that again. That's what I got a lot of out of the report. When I read it, I thought it was something that was a disagreement over internal policy.
Yeah,
and disagreement over somebody who has the complete authority to set and unset an agenda before the board, who did so, and someone didn't like that and thought it put them in a bad position. That's called work.
Yeah, and work is not fun. I mean, I would vastly prefer, and I've said this many times, inherited wealth,
right?
Where
you don't have to do that. But you're right. You're absolutely right about the nature, especially of TV news. Especially of TV news. These are small. These are basically independent contractor types who, and the more successful you are, the more independent you feel you are.
The more it's about you.
The more it's about you.
Now, this may be really unfair, but I remembered the last story I was sent out on as a reporter, and it was some guy walked into a daycare center in Plano with a gun and took the whole daycare center hostage. And he said he was going to throw dead babies out the door. And so there's this huge media presence. It goes on for hours. People, dish trucks, everything. And we were cordoned off, so we couldn't see exactly what was happening at the daycare center. Well, there's a bunch of action up at the daycare center, and we all think it's dead babies. It turned out not to be. No kids were killed. But that's what we thought at that moment. And so we're rushing up to get to the cordon. And I passed this very hot-looking female TV reporter who is screaming, "This can't happen now. Where is my blank blank makeup?"
Right.
And I thought, yeah,
and it's not all of them, but I'm not characterizing Rodriguez this way.
I didn't mean this.
And you're not either. I'm saying that, for example, I covered media for many years.
Yeah.
Calling a TV station was great because you had a lot of people who felt like they knew the best way to run it, and they'd be happy to talk to you about it.
Right. Anyway, we've got Tony on line one. Tony, are you still there?
Yes. How y'all doing this morning?
Good. What's up?
All right. My issue is that, Mike Miles was touted as being this ex-ambassador, ranger, and all this organizational stuff. That was his skill set.
Mm-hmm.
It seems as though that really wasn't his skill set, because at the end of the day, he has had people in his staff who've been top management who have left this DIC organization. And I would think somebody who was taught discipline and responsibility would say, okay, bring on the report from the outside of the school district. I haven't done anything wrong. The one thing I saw was he said, well, it should never got out.
Well, Tony, let me ask you a question. Given the crisis that the school system's in and the need for reform, why do we care if a bunch of top executives come and go? I don't care about their job security. I mean, Miles has actually hit every bump along his reform program. So why is it important if these people come and go?
Well, the thing is this. Leadership comes from the top. And I'm going to tell you something. If it's disorganization at the top, that means it's disorganization at the bottom. I don't care what organization you're in. Jerry Jones is a prime example. It's confusion at the top and the team's not winning. At the end of the day, you want somebody who leads, who is behind the teachers and the students, not someone who is dictating. orders.
But I've also gotten from some of the people who've left. They wouldn't talk as they left, but they've said subsequently that they left because of the trustees, not Miles. So
Well, at the end of the day, like I think the gentleman that's co-host you is this. He had to work with that group. This is not a strong mayor government. So my thing is this: if you know that the trustees are adversaries, you should be able to work with them, unless you just say, okay, he's not in the military anymore. So,
Tony, I thank you for calling, and please listen to our response. I'm going to let you go, but I want to ask Eric about this. I ran into at Starbucks this week former Mayor Ron Kirk, and he sat down. We started talking about this. He told me a story I'd never heard before. That when he was mayor, he spoke to some Chamber of Commerce group, and they said, "What could you do, Mayor Kirk, to help the school system?" And he claims he told them, "Fire the entire school board and get rid of it permanently as an entity." Tony just said it's the superintendent's job to work with the trustees. Is that the problem? Is this basic? You called it a witch's den.
Yeah.
One of the little vignettes that shows up in this report is you've got these trustees popping up outside Rebecca Rodriguez's office, ginning things up, stirring the pot, winking at her in the meeting when she embarrasses Miles. Why shouldn't they be barred from the building except when they're there for their meeting?
They absolutely should. I talked to a couple people who in the last week who are involved with, who are very involved in the business community's efforts to support DISD. And one is a former school board person in another city. And, that person said, we were not allowed in the buildings, and it was the right thing to do. The board is to be truly like a board at a company, which helps set policy, helps question direction, doesn't set a destination, but helps set a direction, and then hires people to execute that and gets out of their way and supports them. Another person told me now, and so I think that Tony's exactly right that as a former military person, I don't think he's showing that he doesn't have that in his skill set. I think that was actually a problem, that he was coming in sort of unable to, and the board did not realize that you've got somebody who's going to listen and then go execute something based on the facts on the ground, and see those people as a desk jockey generals who don't understand what I have to do to get things done. I think he's doing exactly what a lot of military people would do. The problem is the support, the public perception of what he's doing, and the support he has or doesn't have from interested parties is important. Unlike in a military situation, and it is important. This person told me, made it really clear, and I thought this was interesting, wanted to make very clear that these groups, Dallas Citizens Council, the regional chamber, that their education arm, wanted to make very clear to me, they support Miles' programs. We're not saying we unequivocally, I'm not going to stop trying to say that word, we're not saying we completely support Miles. And that was if you're Mike Miles, that's a little frightening. That's a little bit of distancing from you, because why wouldn't they support his programs? Look at the news again from this last week, right?
Sure.
5th straight year that
the dropout rate.
The dropout rate has gotten better, and if you look back 5 years ago, substantially better. Now there are folks at DISD who will tell you, we've been doing things that don't get attention that work. And we've been doing them school by school, small organic things that are starting to show. But regardless, it's scoreboard if you're Miles. Again, scoreboard.
Sure. The news had this big editorial hinting that maybe Miles needs to go. What gets me is that in Dallas, it always seems to me that the one evil that must be avoided at all costs is public friction.
Yeah.
You know, and so you're going to completely reform this $1.7 billion a year school system that's a junk pile. You can't do something like that without some friction.
A lot of friction.
Yeah.
And you should, something's happening, if how do you know
Right,
how do you know
right.
how do you know the skillet's hot enough?
Yeah.
If when you put the meat in there it
That's
sizzles, right?
Yeah.
So you should be okay with that. But no, and again, we've talked about this. The paper sets the agenda still.
Right.
It's not as influential as it was, but it still sets the talking points agenda of the day.
Yeah.
And when they get disturbed, that people are getting disturbed.
Right.
Then that's going to be a problem. Instead of saying, well, okay, good, you guys fight it out. And then let's look at, in 6 months, in a year, in 2 years, at the final results, which, as you said, so far he's hitting all his marks.
Right. And life is just not, in a big city, is not a Park City's garden party.
Yeah.
Where the worst thing in the world is, oh my God, that man's raising his voice.
Now, Tony's point that I think is valid, and I was talking to someone the other day about this, and you've talked to these teachers more than I have. I've only talked to a few, but that there are supposedly really good teachers who feel like on the ground things are changing to the point they don't want to do this job anymore. They can't do their job anymore, and that is a problem. It seems like.
Well, I don't know if I guess we got a little while before the break. This came up. We went to dinner with some people last night, and they brought it up. And they talked to, this woman was saying she has a friend who's a really good teacher, lifelong teacher, really unhappy about with Miles and the way things are going and the way these orders are coming down. And I'm listening to this story wondering, so Miles has been coming in her classroom and telling her what to do? No, the principal has been coming in the classroom and telling her what to do. And I think there are tons of instances, and I bet Miles would agree with this, where principals have overinterpreted, misinterpreted, scared for their own jobs, gone and done a ham-fisted job of carrying out this new regime. And I believe what Miles is doing is trying to change out a lot of principals. But, again, you just can't pull off this kind of change without friction and I don't want to sound callous about it, but without breaking some eggs.
Yeah, and that's right. And the critics of that approach, and I have the same theories, would say, yeah, you're talking about breaking eggs, but what's happening is you're losing great people.
Yeah.
And I don't know what to do about that. If you've got bad principals who are, like you said, having to do something for the first time in 10 years and are choosing to make life hard on people, on everyone in their school because they're not good at their job.
Right.
And they don't get it.
And
they're afraid of getting moved out.
Yeah.
That's really tough. But I guess the question is, ultimately, can you put together, like they're trying to do, a system that trains people to be better in those principal jobs and therefore over time recruit people to replace the ones you don't want to leave, but through this process are leaving. The other thing is, we've talked about this, teachers aren't, good teachers are also the folks who want to be left alone the most.
Yeah.
And so if they're caught up in this, it's more unfortunate situations, it seems like, that I don't know the answer to.
Yeah. We'll be back, and we will have the answer to everything after this break.
If it's time to get rid of your old gas guzzler, the Knon Vehicle Donation Program can help. There's still a market for those old vehicles, and if you donate it, you're helping to support quality programming here on KNON. Just call 877-KNON-AUTO or go online to knon.org. We'll take care of everything from pickup to tax paperwork. That's 877-KNON-AUTO or online at KNON.org.
Hey, babes, I'll take one.
Get off my lawn.
Jim Schutze back with Eric Celeste. We're talking about Mike Miles and DISD, and is Miles wearing out his welcome? I told you that I ran into Ron Kirk this week. He said he doesn't know Miles at all and hasn't been keeping up with this situation. He was making and Kirk's been to the mountaintop in Washington, and he was making an observation just based on general experience that people always think it'd be a great idea to bring somebody in from the military to manage things, and he said nobody manages anything in the military. People in the military give orders.
Right.
And people have to do what you say. And so you do worry. I mean, Miles used to be in the military. He also used to be a diplomat. He's also been a school administrator. But let's say we've thought up why we're tired of him already.
Right.
Now, you and I know many people in the media business who've been married a couple times, maybe.
Right.
Present company.
Included.
Yeah. But I have this friend who had been married 5 times, and one beer, and you had to listen to this long story about what was wrong with each wife. Right. And very detailed.
Right.
And so after a while, you don't want to have a beer with that guy anymore.
Right.
Because you've heard the story. So I worry that Dallas is becoming that guy. I mean, we get a superintendent. We say we're going to, we'll stick with you, man. You do what you have to do, and we'll wait and see the results. And not too far into it, we're kind of winking at somebody else, aren't we?
Yeah, and, I wonder, is there... I asked myself this question a few weeks ago and then promptly forgot it, which was, is there a school district of this size in the U.S. that runs well?
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know, and I don't think so. If you said, I have no idea. But if you said you've got to put $100 on it right now, I'd borrow $100, and then I would say no.
And that's a good point, and that may go back to the question of the basic model of school district, school board. Nobody votes in the school elections. People get elected by their cousins, and I met a guy some years ago who was a lawyer who'd carved out a specialty where he represented superintendents who were getting fired. That was his job. He worked all over the country.
Had lots of work.
Yeah, that's right. And he negotiated packages for them. And he has made a study, for some reason, of why people run for the school board. And he said the most common reason people run for the school board is they had a kid in the school system and the kid got in trouble.
Right.
And I'm going to go down there and teach them a lesson.
Fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a friend who told me his son, who went through private school, he lives in Dallas, he lives in Oak Cliff, but his son went all the way through private school and just graduated. But he said when he's thinking about running for DISD school board. And I just looked at him and said, why? And he said, because, I see the way a good school system can work with this. And, and I told him, I said, right. And that's one of the most exclusive, highest cost schools in North Texas. 89% of the kids in DISD are on free lunch. You've got one of the poorest school systems in the in the state. I think it is the poorest in the state. It's more so than Houston. And you've got to educate every one of those kids. That's your mission.
Right.
And by the way, the newspaper thinks they know how to do it. You and I, Jim Schutze and Eric Celeste think you know a better way to do it. And the other school board members, the parents, the teachers, and some county commissioners might weigh in every once in a while to tell you how to do your job. You really want to do that? And he said, that doesn't sound fun at all.
No.
So I think there's a fundamental structure problem with something, and I think it's with something of this size. You know, you can't run a business of 157,000 with 157,000 clients, all of whom have very special needs, where you're competing, with hundreds and perhaps thousands of managers and employees who are trying to service those clients. If you look at it that way, this is that's a bad way to take that model and say, let's use the same business practices we use at Haynes and Boone, let's use here.
Well, that's ain't gonna.
I don't think it works, and I don't know. I'd make a lot more money if I knew exactly what works.
What does work, and you're absolutely right that we could look outside of Dallas and look around the country and see that these issues are replicated elsewhere. There's some very bright, committed people on the school board, but there are some things that are really wrong with the model. $7 billion budget. That's a lot of money washing through that place. I've been aware for years that you have school board members out going to dinner with people who are prospective contractors. And maybe they don't do it when the specific contract is pending, but they do it before it's pending or whatever. And that's just bad news. You know, that can't lead anywhere good. But you have all that money going through, so you have people out there who are hugely motivated to get in there and push the buttons.
Yeah, there's a lot, right? There's a lot of money to be had. And so you're going to have people in there trying to get it. I know a guy who runs a construction company, and that company does mostly school projects, build schools, and they do that all around the state. And I remember when there was a bid up for DISD years ago, he was just looking at that like, that's going to make my life.
Yeah.
That will totally, if I get that contract, totally turns everything around. He asked my advice about it, and I don't know anything. I mean, do it the right way. And of course, he didn't get the bid, and probably looked at me like I didn't help him at all, because he went through the process and did everything that we were supposed to do, and probably had no chance because of that.
Another dinner table conversation I heard this week. Somebody was talking about a relative or somebody who was in his 80s and trying to get his business kind of nailed down at the end of life, and he said he's had to sell both of their lake houses, and the house in Minnesota and the house in Hawaii, and on and on. And so my envy molecules start churning around, and I said, wow, what did this guy do for a living? He said, he did something for the school system up there in Minnesota. And I thought, isn't it wonderful that you can go into a field where the task, like in Dallas, is to educate these children who come from grinding poverty and wind up with a house in Hawaii.
I just started watching House of Cards on last night, first episode on Netflix.
Right.
And what my takeaway from that was, in the first episode, a guy decides he's got screwed over politically,
right? And
so he's going to start taking people out,
right?
And what he does is he needs a pawn, and so when he goes and he gets the education czar guy,
right.
And he gets the guy who's studied education more than anybody and knows what needs to happen to change education,
right?
And that person has no idea how the real world works,
right?
And he's able to manipulate him, screw him over so completely and thoroughly that he gets what he wants, because this person has had his head in education for 24 years, and so has no idea about how to actually get things done.
Right.
I thought that was very funny, but also very telling. You've got some school board members who are those sort of people, right? Who are, education reform advocates, know a lot about the studies that show the best and the most interesting new ways to do things around the country. But that doesn't, I don't see that translating into innovation in our large school districts like this that where it does happen, and what frustrates me as someone whose kid just came out of DISD, is those small things do happen on a very granular level.
Down in the schools.
In the schools.
Absolutely.
And there are teachers and there are administrators who are trying new things and doing interesting things. No,
that's true.
And that's where, and I do think that's where some of that frustration comes in. Look, we've shown success with this program. No, I'm going to come in because everything's so broken, and I don't know this is wrong. Mm-hmm. Everything's so broken, I can't worry about those little pockets of experimentation that are going on. I have to do drastic things and say, everyone concentrate on these two key aspects, because I've got to bring everything up to a D+ level. I can't worry about your tiny little A- program.
And I am military, and so I think everything's got to work the same. That's an excellent point. Years ago, we had this friend who was head of instruction at the Tag Magnet High School. And I wasn't working for a newspaper. She put me on some committee to advise them or something. And I said, you guys are found to be the best high school in America all the time. You win all these incredible prizes. These kids from Tag Magnet, they go to there isn't another high school in the country that does better at placing kids, and yet you never get any publicity or any credit for it. And I said, can't I use my media experience to try to get you some publicity for this? And she said, oh, no, Jim. She said, right. I could see the color draining from her face, and she said, I know you mean well, but please don't draw any attention to us, because then Ross Avenue will see us and will be destroyed. And so they succeed by hiding from Ross Avenue, and I know why.
Well, and my daughter came through Booker T, right? And had a lot of friends, because she came through the Woodrow system, and she had a lot of friends who went to TAG as well.
Right.
And there's enormous jealousy of those schools within the system, and
people who on the school board who say, "Let's go get them."
They were constantly trying to make the point. Look, don't fix things by going after us because we've got a pocket of excellence here.
Yeah.
And we're providing something. You'd walk those halls at those schools and just be so envious that why couldn't my high school experience have been like this?
Right.
Art everywhere, and students and doing study groups together, and being mature enough to just let them out and they would work on their own. It was wonderful. But you're right, they could not. And by the way, very diverse groups of kids.
And they have to hit those numbers.
Yeah.
They got to be as diverse
as the school district.
And they were at Tag Magnet, and people outside just wouldn't believe what they put up with. I didn't believe it when she said, please don't draw attention to us. And I said, well, what are you worried about? And she said, call Yvonne Ewell, and start asking her some questions about it. So Yvonne Ewell is a school named after her. She was on the school board. So I called her up, and she said, that school is elitist, and it needs to be cut down. And I said, well, they meet all their diversity numbers, and they're elite because they achieve such academic excellence. And Yvonne Ewell said to me, that's what I just said to you. They're elitist. And I said, wait a minute. Are you telling me the academic excellence is elitism? And she said, yes. So I said, oh, well, thank you so much, Dr. Ewell. I got off the phone.
Wow.
And I called the friend back and said, okay, I get it. I see why you want to hide from them.
Yeah, which is so absurd. Like you said, it's there. You need, like, if DISD has nothing else, they have several examples. They've got the all-girls school, middle school. They've got the TAG. They've got Booker T. They've got several places where kids coming up who don't care about any of this, they just want to go to a good school.
Yeah.
And feel like they're being prepared for the junk kick that is life.
Right.
And if you take that away from them, that I at least have this chance to go do these things.
Yeah.
I don't know. that becomes then, why would anybody leave their kids in the ISD? Because as a parent, you can go, you know what, you tried out for this school, or you didn't have the grades to get into tag. That's fine. We gave it our best shot. Let's look at some other options. I know a parent who just did that, and they're going to another DISD school, high school. That's fine. They feel you're fine with that. You can say, for whatever reason, my kid doesn't deserve to be here. But what you will not put up with is the fact that there's no chance at all for your child to go to a school that has that sort of excellence. If
right. And putting your kid for motivated parents of any ethnic stripe, putting your kid in DISD has always been this game that you figured out how to game it. I'm going to get my kid in this program or that program. I'm going to get my kid in the deaf school, even though my kid's not deaf, because I know that they have great teachers there. There's always this little scam that you're playing, and so the whole reform movement comes along, and it looks like it's going to ruin all the scams. And you know what, Eric? Why don't they just put you and me in charge of the school system?
Well, that's a lot more work than we do now, Jim.
That's my problem. But wait a minute. What would that pay?
Well, not what KNON pays. That's for sure.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's true. I think it would pay even more than KNON pays us. I don't know why they don't just put us in charge of the whole thing.
But I do wonder, your point about the school board, can it functionally work? And what is its purpose in this system? And I don't know. I mean, I that's interesting to me. That is it something that gives you this idea that you have a checks and balances system,
right?
But in reality, the lure to either get your people into that money train or use that as a stepping stone for higher office. So you've got to make waves or be your personal agenda, factory, or be your Von Uhl and use it as a place to sort of say, no, we're all going to be C+.
I was invited to the home of a former school board member once when this person was still on the school board, and this person was going to expose untold scandals to me, make Watergate look like a Sunday school picnic. I'd win the Pulitzer and so on. So I go to the home, and this person and the spouse start pulling file boxes from under beds and out of the kitchen, and it's like we were talking about the OPR report, the weird writing in the margins. And after about 2 hours, I thought, oh, I see what's happened. Being on the school board has driven this person insane. and I wonder if that happens sometimes.
It must. And some good people come out of it, right? Rafael and Chia, wasn't he a school board person? But they don't stay long. The good ones, I think, realize, okay, I've learned what I need to learn. I really can't do that much. That's my guess.
Right.
And they move on. So I would just wonder if that board, the way it's currently constructed to work,
right,
can work.
This guy Cowan seems to be doing a good job of trying to run stuff.
Yeah.
You've got Mike Morath, who's very
smart. That's one of the people who is a reform agent and knows a lot about the best practices around the country.
Right. Well, anyway, like I say, they just need to turn it over to us, Eric.
I'm in.
Okay. Jim Schutze, Eric Celeste, get off my lawn. We'll see you next week.
KNON 89.3 FM in Dallas and Fort Worth, the voice of the people.
Business owners, tell KNON's listeners about your business. You can put your business or event on KNON. KNON currently has space available to run announcements for you. Tell KNON's listeners about your goods, services, nightclub, concert, or event. Help keep the voice of the people on the air while putting your information on the air. KNON's been named the #1 radio station in Dallas by both the Dallas Observer and D Magazine. Put your business with Dallas's #1 station. Call now for more information at 214-828-9500, extension 227, or extension 233. For more information, go to KNON.org and click on the Run Spots on KNON page. It's a great way for your business to support community radio while letting more people know about you.